New York radio is a scene. So I grew up in the West Coast, Michael, and the West Coast, for whatever reasons, is not as combative. It's not Philadelphia. It's not New York. You do talk radio, you make a nice living, and you go on with your day. And so, and then I go to ESPN and I turn it on. And it's hosts firing at each other. There's a rancor. There's an angst to it. And in that, you have stayed sort of above ground as kind of a more likable, relatable family guy. Are there times you think, what the fuck is wrong with this business? What is going on?
It's so weird, Colin, because when my show was battling Mike Francesa, it was covered in the newspapers and the tabloids like it was a beat. I mean, there was a guy who covered that. I mean, the ratings, the weeklies, imagine the weeklies are covered. And there was a lot of pressure. So you finally vanquish the king and you feel like, well, that's over now. And now they bring in somebody else, Craig Carton, who's a very talented guy. And the wars start all over again. And the thing that makes it difficult, and you work for ESPN, I mean, it's owned by Disney. And I also work for the Yankees.
Right.
And there's a certain decorum you have to have where you can't really get that down in the gutter when your competition is able to. Now, I still have confidence that will ultimately prevail, but you kind of, your hands are tied a little bit.
No, when I came over to Fox, they told me in their pitch, they said, you're not an ESPN guy. You're a Fox guy. They're like, it's not that you work at ESPN, but you're more of a Fox guy. You feel more West Coast, a little loose, a little bit of a loose cannon. And I didn't take that as, that wasn't a criticism. I was like, I can do both, whatever. It's interesting. I'll say this. And one of the reasons I started this podcast company, because I said it's a more authentic version of me. I could just talk to you like this at a bar at your house, my house, whatever. My takeaway in Francesa was always, it's almost a Trumpian thing where if you listen to my show and you've listened to it enough to know that some of it's tongue in cheek, a big portion of it, it's theatrical. I'm over the top sometimes. Now that doesn't mean I'm not serious, Michael, and I'll do a probing interview, but my show is a lot of, it's fun. It's light. Francesa has this Trumpian quality where he thinks, and it's very odd, that everything he talks about from presidential debates to Medicare should be taken as fact. And at first I thought it was a bit. 10 years ago, I thought this is a bit. And like the Al Albuquerque moment. And I'm like, it's not a bit. I don't know him. I've met him once. A Trumpian is the word I use because Trump just bullshits people constantly and pretends he's an expert and really knows very little. Was the rancor and the animosity with Francesa real between you two?
Toward the end, it was because I think as we crept closer, because he was there for 30 years and he was on top. And, the thing that angered me is he talked down about us and he would call us the pea shooter. And ESPN in New York, I mean, ESPN is such a monolith. The radio wasn't that ultra important. They care, but it's not like FAN, it's FAN, and that's all they do. And then he started talking down to us. And then when the Yes Network dropped him on the simulcast and put me on, he said the only reason I did that is they could control me. And then you're talking about my ethics and morals, and that really angered me. And there was a real animosity there. It got nasty. And when we finally beat him, I mean, I got to tell you, I've had a lot of good feelings in my life, some off the radio, some off TV. That's up there. I mean, I felt great.
Well, you should. Craig Carton's another guy I only met twice. I'll tell you a Craig Carton story.
Please.
And it's funny. So about 5 or 6 years ago, before he had his really rough situation, right? A really, really important executive had asked me, what do you think of Craig Carton? They were thinking of a TV radio show. And again, I'm not real intuitive on stuff like this. I said, I think he'd be a blast to hang out with. I think he's probably got a big heart, but I don't know if I'd ever trust Craig Carton. And about a year and a half later, his life unraveled. I think I like Craig's talent. I think he's sort of a chemtrail of narcissism. And, how everybody has a side hustle? I think his life sometimes feels like a side hustle, but I do think he has a heart of gold. I think he can do really wonderful things. And I think he does deep down have remorse. What do you make of him? Because I don't think there's ever been a radio personality like him, maybe in the country.
I think, Colin, that he is tremendously talented. I mean, he really knows how to push buttons as a radio host. He knows how to agitate, instigate, and that's all pretty good when you're taking phone calls and trying to keep an audience. I think that he will say anything to get ratings. And I believe that he has remorse about what happened. And we had him on the air when he got fired from FAN and everything came crumbling down. We had him on for an hour on an interview. And I thought he was very forthright and humble and all that. And then he called me up and said, I'd like to have lunch with you before I go, away. So we had about an hour and a half lunch. And I think he's, as you said, he's a great guy to hang with. He's really funny. He's very clever. He's very bright. And now I don't listen to his show because I run up against him. People tell me, well, he says the worst things about you. He can't feel like that about me because I've never given him a reason. I never go at him on the air, never refer to him on the air, but he does say things about me. And to me, that's a part of the fight that I don't like. I'm not going to get down in the dirt, not at my age. I've been around it too long, and I do work for like 2 Tiffany brands that would probably frown on it anyway. But Craig is a very aggressive guy on the air, and that's who he is.
Yeah, and a very aggressive guy in real life as well.